A reading from the letter to the Hebrews. The Holy Spirit says, "Oh, that today you would hear his voice. Harden not your hearts as at the rebellion, in the day of testing in the desert, where your ancestors tested and tried me, and saw my works for 40 years. Because of this, I was provoked with that generation, and I said, they have always been of erring heart, and they do not know my ways. As I swore in my wrath, they shall not enter into my rest. Take care, brothers and sisters, that none of you may have an evil and unfaithful heart, so as to forsake the living God. Encourage yourselves daily while it is still today, so that none of you may grow hardened by the deceit of sin. We have become partners of Christ, if only we hold the beginning of the reality firm until the end." Verbum Domini. If today you hear his voice, harden not your hearts.
If today you hear his voice, harden not your hearts.
Come, let us bow down and worship. Let us kneel before the Lord who made us. For he is our God, and we are the people he shepherds, the flock he guides.
If today you hear his voice, harden not your hearts.
Oh, that today you would hear his voice. Harden not your hearts as at Meribah, as in the day of Massah in the desert, where your fathers tempted me. They tested me, though they had seen my works.
If today you hear his voice, harden not your hearts.
40 years I was wearied of that generation. I said, this people's heart goes astray. They do not know my ways. Therefore I swore in my anger, they shall never enter my rest.
If today you hear his voice, harden not your hearts.
Dominus vobiscum.
Et cum spiritu tuo.
Lectio Sancti Evangelii secundum Marcum.
Gloria tibi, Domine.
A leper came to him, and kneeling down, begged him and said, "If you wish, you can make me clean." Moved with pity, he stretched out his hand, touched the leper, and said to him, "I do will it. Be made clean." The leprosy left him immediately, and he was made clean. Then, warning him sternly, he dismissed him at once. Then he said to him, "See that you tell no one anything, but go show yourself to the priest and offer for your cleansing what Moses prescribed. That will be proof for them." The man went away and began to publicize the whole matter, He spread the report abroad so that it was impossible for Jesus to enter a town openly. He remained outside in deserted places, and people kept coming to him from everywhere. Verbum Domini. It was on October 16th in the year 1992 that 6 bishops with this statue went to Red Square in Moscow before Lenin's tomb, and at midnight they crowned Our Lady. This is the International Pilgrim Virgin statue, and we're privileged to have her arrive here yesterday at 10:30. We have this morning David Carollo, who's the executive director of the World Apostolate of Fatima, Katie, Larry, Patrick, and others who have come here because there is a U.S. tour that's going on this year, and their initiative to bring the International Pilgrim Virgin statue throughout the United States, to put, if you will, the United States under her dominion, bringing the message of Fatima throughout the United States, which is God's plan for peace. And there's something very special as people experienced it. You know, last night I wanted to, after the chapel was closed, just to spend a few quiet moments here with Our Lady. And she kept me up kind of late. I didn't want to leave because there's something special about this International Pilgrim Virgin statue. I was talking with a lady who was here this afternoon. She was related to me a few days ago, the difficulty she was having in her life, and she was weeping. She felt consoled by Mary's motherly presence. And the story of this statue is that it was carved in 1947. And it was solemnly blessed by the Bishop of Fatima that it would be used as a pilgrim statue to bring the graces of Fatima to all the places throughout the world where she would be brought, and that he prayed that in a very special way Mary's motherly presence would accompany this statue, would be here with the International Pilgrim Virgin statue. And that's what people have experienced. She's been on every continent in the world. People have experienced favors and graces. And for those of you throughout our country, you can go to the World Apostolate of Fatima website to find out where she's going to be in the United States. Tonight, the statue will be brought up to the Shrine of the Blessed Sacrament in Hansville. For those of you in Alabama, that you could go there tonight at 7 p.m. to the Shrine of the Most Blessed Sacrament to take part in a Eucharistic vigil with Our Lady of Fatima. That'll be happening at 7 p.m. Central Time up in Hansville tonight. Today, also at 10 o'clock, David and Patrick will be giving a talk at Guadalupe Hall about the pilgrim virtue and the messages of Fatima. So we invite anyone who's able to come to that talk in Guadalupe Hall at 10 o'clock today. On the schedule I had at 1 o'clock, there's a Jim and Joy program, but actually it's going to be at 3 o'clock for those who wanted to participate in that, the Jim and Joy program with David Carollo. So it is a special way in which the message of Fatima is being brought throughout the world, and Mary's motherly presence. You know, Pope Pius XII also blessed this statue in 1952. So we remember this is the 100th anniversary of the message of Fatima, of Our Lady's apparitions at Fatima in Portugal. It was 30 years later that this beautiful statue that Lucia herself dictated how it was to be made, one of the 3 shepherd children. And she spoke of how, in a particular way, this one resembles how Our Lady appeared to her. And so it was in 1952, Pope Pius XII also blessed this statue. And he remarked about her being crowned in 1946, and he said, "I crowned her as a queen of the world. And the following year, through the Pilgrim Virgin, she set forth as though to claim her dominion. And the favors she performs along the way are such that we can hardly believe what we are seeing with our eyes." And of course, this statue represents a person. You know, it's just like someone may have a great affection for their family, as we ought, wife and family. And when he pulls out a piece of Kodak paper from his billfold, someone doesn't say, "Why do you have a piece of Kodak paper in your billfold? Why are you carrying that?" They say, "No, because it's got the picture of his wife and his children." And so it's something that represents them, that calls to mind his affection and devotion to them and reminds him of them. And it's the same way with the sacred images that we have in the church. They are there because we're body and soul. You know, and we can't just put everything in the world on a material level. That would be to deny our very humanity, our own experience. That love is something beyond the material, our own thoughts, something beyond the material. So there's also immaterial reality. You know, Lucia, she wrote a beautiful book, Under Obedience. We actually have this at Religious Catalog, The Message of Fatima. And her provincial had asked, that this was decades after the apparitions, that she would write down in greater detail what took place. And she also wrote how she saw the message in the course of time and in the light of different events. And she talked about how over the course of the apparitions, which began May 13th, 1917, and continued until October 13th, 1917, with this miracle of the sun that 70,000 people witnessed. And she said the crowds kept growing and growing and growing. And listen to what she had to say about that. She said, "The time from July to August passed with ever increasing number of people who, tired and disillusioned with the materialism and deceptions of earth, came running in their thirst in search for the supernatural." You see, there was this great movement of man, atheistic communism, that began with the Bolshevik Revolution. So you have this great move to try to eliminate the name of God from people's minds and hearts. And all the violence that took place, tens of millions of people died because of atheistic communism. What's God's response to that? The tender love of a mother. The exact opposite of the violence and coercion and murder and all that took place with atheistic communism. God's response is a tender love of a mother. And he uses 3 shepherd children, 3 little children, to spread his name throughout the world, just as he used the Immaculate Mary to be that one through whom salvation would come to the world through the conception of Jesus, the eternal Word who became flesh and dwelt among us. And so just as those bishops brought the statue of Our Lady, this very statue, to Red Square in Moscow before Lenin's tomb, and they crowned her. So Patrick Sabat, who's the custodian of the image, bringing her, he said, "Father, do you want to crown her?" Of course, I said, "Yes." And so I crowned her, and I thought this morning that in a very special way, that through the miracle of television, and Mother Angelica was the instrument of beginning, that Mary, we want to consecrate this whole network that reaches so many people throughout the world. We want it under your dominion. Do you know that EWTN was first incorporated on December 12, 1980, the feast of Our Lady of Guadalupe, who is the patroness of the new, or the star of the new evangelization, Pope St. John Paul II called her. And it went on the air first on the Feast of the Assumption, Solemnity of the Assumption, August 15th, 1981. So we know that Mary's always had a role, too, in the development of this network in proclaiming the eternal Word who became flesh in her womb. And so, Mary, in your presence here, we want this whole network, all of the employees, all of the places where this reaches, all of the people who are with us, we want to place it under your dominion. And as part of expressing that, at the conclusion of this Mass today, we're going to have a rosary, and we're going to have different meditations on the luminous mysteries in a very particular way, asking Our Lady of the Rosary, Our Lady of Fatima, to help us in all the various needs that we experience in the world today. So, Mary, we are so happy that you are with us through this image of the International Pilgrim Virgin statue. Remain with us. Be our mother. Comfort us, all of those who are with us through television and radio and internet. One final point that I wanted to make today as well is in regard to the readings. I could have chosen special readings for this special votive Mass of Our Lady, but I decided to remain with the ferial readings, the readings of the day, because I thought they connect with the message of Fatima. And so we had the letter to the Hebrews, chapter 3 today, where the author is quoting Psalm 95. The Holy Spirit says, is what the reading began. Oh, that today you would hear his voice. Harden not your hearts, as at the rebellion in the day of testing in the desert. And it concluded, take care, brothers and sisters, that none of you may have an evil and unfaithful heart, so as to forsake the living God. Encourage yourselves daily while it's still today, so that none of you may grow hardened by the deceit of sin. Lucia said that once again, God was appealing to the world to return to him through Our Lady's apparitions at Fatima. And that's how I see this tour across the United States, that God is appealing once more to our country to return to our Judeo-Christian heritage, to turn away from sin, to not harden our hearts, but to return to the Lord, to his grace, to his mercy, to the tender love of his mother. That's the alternative. We can choose the atheist philosophy where everything is just material and nothing matters, even human life. Or we can choose the truth of the reality that God is not, or man is not just material. He is body and soul. He's not just made for this life, because this life ends in death. He's made for eternity. And so we must not harden our hearts, but return to the Lord with all of our hearts, 10 times or more, as the prophet Baruch said. And the last point from the Gospel of St. Mark today, that the fathers of the church have often seen an analogy between the cleansing, physical cleansing of a physical leper from the cleansing that the Lord wants to give us from sin. And what does we hear about that leper? That he went to the Lord and he said, Jesus, if you wish, you can make me clean. And Jesus touched that leper. He said, I do will it. He wills it for each of us to cleanse us. And immediately he was made clean. Jesus went outside to deserted places. People kept coming to him from everywhere. Come to the Lord. Wherever you are, the Lord wants to cleanse you too, and me, and all of us, so that we can continue that life of living in a pleasing way to God. But the message of Fatima tells us we can make of everything a sacrifice. Everything that's difficult in our life, we can make an offering of that. And the angel of peace said, so you bring peace on your land. When we return to prayer, when we make an offering, we offer sacrifices, we bring peace to our land, to our country. That's the message of Fatima. So my brothers and sisters, while it is still today, let us encourage one another to not turn towards sin, but to return to the Lord with all of our hearts, following Our Lady of Fatima.